Belfast prison on the Crumlin Road is a secure prison. Less than half a dozen people have escaped from it since it was built in the last century. But last night, James McCann pulled off a copybook escape. He sawed his way through the bars in his first floor prison cell with a saw that he'd smuggled in. He knotted the sheets of his bed together and let himself down into a courtyard. He got up onto an inner wall, ran along the top of this to the outer wall, and jumped from this high outer wall to freedom. He was a remand prisoner and was wearing his own clothes. The escape wasn't discovered until 7:30 this morning, so he probably had a few hours' start. The police have issued this description of him. He's 5 feet 10 inches tall, about the same height as myself, dark complexion, long brown hair, blue eyes, oval face with pointed chin and long nose. The fourth finger of his right hand is deformed, and he speaks with a Belfast accent.
The quartet made their break for freedom at around about 11 o'clock this morning. They were all being held under the Special Powers Act and may well have been internees against whom internment orders were served in the last few days. They'd been allowed out of their cells to take part in exercise with other prisoners in a large playing field which is towards the rear of the prison. Suddenly, they made their break for freedom. One report, which is unconfirmed, says that they had knotted sheets and some chairs with them. At all events, the four of them managed to make their way up onto the top of the fairly high wall surrounding the perimeter of the prison. There, they looked down and saw other prison staff waiting for them. I'm told, in fact, that there was no prior tip-off that an escape attempt was going to be made. It's part of the normal precautions here at Belfast Prison that warders should patrol the outside of the wall when men are exercising in the field, just in case of a possible escape bid such as the one this morning. Anyway, the men, once they saw that their escape route had been cut off, came down quietly from the wall and went back to their cells. Afterwards, there was intense police and military activity in the area, for it wasn't clear that all the men had been prevented from getting away. The grounds of St Malachy's Boys' School nearby were searched by troops, and troops also put up roadblocks on the Antrim Road and elsewhere and searched cars. They asked drivers to stop and searched in their boots just in case any of the wanted men might be hiding there. But before long, it was determined that in fact no men were missing from the prison, and the search was called off.
key to this door, man, please? The key to this door. You got the key to that door? Yeah. Just wait outside. Thank you. Okay. Walk right.
Crumlin Road Gaol has been the subject of continuous worry for the security forces ever since the escape of 11 remand prisoners last November and the 3 top IRA men 3 weeks later. The arms were discovered this morning after a general search following a tip-off. They were in a cell occupied by a number of prisoners who were all waiting trial on arms charges. Quite how the arms got into Crumlin Road Gaol in the first place is still not yet clear. This latest breach of prison security comes only 24 hours after Stormont had received a report saying that Crumlin Road Gaol could never be made entirely secure. The report recommended that a completely new prison should be built, and this is what the Ministry of Home Affairs here is now going to have to consider with an increasing sense of urgency.
Father, how did you find the men this morning?
Well, I found it generally smiles all round. There was a great sigh of relief. Everyone was really concerned about the chaplains and the medical staff and the prison staff. They were all concerned for the past couple of weeks anyway. As you know, some of those men have been 36 days on hunger strike. And they were in fairly poor shape this past week or so.
Father, you've been visiting them over the past 5 weeks and you've watched their gradual decline.
Oh yes, I saw them daily.
What happens at the beginning? How long do they crave for food?
Seemingly the desire for food after about 3 days goes off, and then it's just a gradual process of getting weaker, and they don't have any desire for food after the first 3 or 4 days, as far as I'm aware.
Could most of them still walk about?
Oh, some of those men have been in bed for 3 to 4 weeks now. So they were entering their 6th week, some of them.
They were drinking, of course,
Oh, yes,
water.
they were drinking 3 or 4 pints of water a day. That's the only food they were taking, water.
Did any of them ever feel they wanted to give up?
No, no one told me they wanted to give it up. As a matter of fact, they said they were going to continue to the death. And that was an embarrassing position for me or any chaplain.
How did the men hear of the decision by Mr. Whitelaw to give them the concessions?
Well, of course, they heard the BBC announcement first, and then they didn't accept it. It was too general, and they wanted the particulars. And eventually the prison governor made those things known to them when he got the facts.
There was quite some delay, wasn't there?
There was, yes.
Did the men ask you for an explanation of this?
No, the men didn't ask me for an explanation.
They heard this morning, early this morning, did they immediately clamour for food inside the prison?
I don't think so. The men, they just continued on sleeping. And as far as I know, no, I'm not quite sure. I think that they just took food at early breakfast time.
Do they consider that they've won a victory?
Well, of course they do. That's an awkward question, but of course they do. They had made certain requests, and Mr. Whitelaw has granted those requests. So,
one of the men in the most severe condition is in fact in hospital, was taken there early this morning, Billy McKee.
that's right.
You're just back from seeing him.
Just back from seeing him.
How is he?
Well, with proper medical care and expert nursing, there's a big change in him already, and he's quite healthy, rosy complexion at the moment. He wasn't looking too good, I may say, last night.
In this long-range conversation, the prisoners were able to make their grievances known. They say they're long-term prisoners serving sentences for offences ranging from drug-taking to manslaughter, and it seems the trouble has arisen because of the privileges granted a few weeks ago to men serving sentences for so-called political offences. These men say they don't begrudge the political prisoners their new conditions, but they now want the same treatment, and they also want their sentences reviewed. Meanwhile, they're staying put.
Okay, well, I'll take a hold all over you. Okay. Get them in.
Men got away by overpowering their prison officers as they were being brought into court along the connecting tunnel which runs under Crumlin Road from the jail. They got out through the courthouse, but one of them was then recaptured. The second man, who it's thought is armed, is now at large somewhere in the maze of houses here behind the court. A search of the area is now going on. When IRA leader James Bryson was shot last month, hostilities soon broke out inside Belfast jail between provisional and official IRA prisoners over who was responsible. These only stopped when the two sides arranged a ceasefire in Dublin. But in case of future trouble, the officials asked to be moved out of A wing and away from the provisionals into a separate wing. This meant the two sides only met during visits when they shared the same room, and it's here apparently that the fresh trouble has occurred. But the officials are also complaining about their new conditions. They say they have no running water, bad toilet facilities and little chance for recreation. When they moved out of A wing, they had to sign a form agreeing that the move was being made for their own protection. And the government say that in signing these forms, they acknowledge that their conditions in the new wing wouldn't be as good as those in the past. The officials' answer to this is that they believe the move to the new wing would only be temporary, pending transfer to the maze or some other prison. But it's the fresh attack said to have come from the provisionals which has led to this latest protest. I understand a statement will be appearing tomorrow from the official IRA prisoners in which they outline their case. And among the allegations, a claim from the provisionals that they'll systematically break the legs of every official IRA man who receives a visitor.